Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome to your first video uh, of the music class for this year. Now, this is not only going to be a different experience for you since you're doing this virtual learning experience, but up until last year, you were in either guitar class or in choir. But now you are all going to be in the same class, and this class is going to be called Introduction to Songwriting. Okay, so that doesn't mean that we're not going to play guitar or sing, but we are going to do those things applied into songwriting. And we're also going to learn a lot of music theory and songwriting theory, techniques, strategies, song structure, things like that, that are going to give you a better picture of how music is written, how songs are composed, what is the structure of a song, etc. Okay, but first, we have to understand some things and do a quick review to see where you are. Okay, so uh, first we have the rules of the class. I'm not going to go through all of them because you should know them already, but I'm going to include them in this presentation because you should always refer to them. And these are very important. These are the same rules that your other teachers have shared with you, and it's very important that you know them, okay? This PowerPoint presentation is going to be uploaded into Schoology, so if you want to check the rules of the class, open this PowerPoint presentation so you can see them all, okay? I'm not going to go through all of them because you should know them already, and your teachers have already shared them with you. It's the same thing, okay? So let's begin. Okay, first, whole steps and half steps. Okay, for this, we're going to be using this piano keyboard. Now, I know that you don't play the piano, and that's okay, but I think it's a much better way to visualize the things. It's better than a guitar, better than a saxophone, to see how things are set, okay, when it comes to whole steps and half steps. Okay, and don't worry, the same thing applies, the same concepts are going to apply in piano and guitar and saxophone and flute, etc. Okay, but we're going to be using this keyboard as a reference, as a guide. Okay, so be sure to understand exactly what I'm trying to explain here, because this is going to be with you the entire year. Okay, so in a keyboard we have the white keys and we have the black keys. In the white keys, we have all the notes that are natural. What does it mean natural? It means that they have no alterations. What are the alterations? Sharps or flats, okay? So the white keys are gonna be natural notes with no sharps and no flats. Okay, that means that in the black keys, we're going to have sharps and flats. So what is a whole step and what is a half step? So let's focus on the first note right here, C. Okay, if we go a whole step, it means we have to go one note and then another note. So two notes, and that is a half step. So D is a whole step away from C. Okay, D is a whole step away from C. And a half step would be here. So a half step is only one note away, and then a whole step is two notes away. Now, be careful because, for example, from E to F, we don't have a black key, and from B to C, we don't have a black key. So if I'm in E and I have to go a whole step away from E, I will go one note to F and then one note to here, F sharp. So one whole step away from E is F sharp because it's two notes away. Again, so a whole step is two keys away, and a half step is one key away. So again, let's do another one. Let's say we're here, D sharp, okay? So if I say, what note is a whole step away from D sharp? So we go one note to E, and one note to F. So F is a whole step away from D sharp. And what if we are here in A? Okay, what is a half step away from A? We say one note here, A sharp. Okay, we can go higher, like to the right, or we can go lower to the left. For example, let's say we are in F, and I say, what is a whole step down from F? So we go one note down, E, and one note, D sharp. So D sharp is one whole step down from F. And if we are here in D, for example, and let's say go a half step down, it means you go one note and you are here in C sharp. Okay, so half step is one note away or one key away, and the whole step is two keys away. Now, if you see these black keys right here, and you might be wondering why they have two different names, because C sharp is the same thing as D flat. It's just having two names for the same note. If we play C sharp and we play D flat, it's gonna be the same note, the same sound, but they have different names. Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay, it's just one note that has two different names. So C sharp is the same as D flat, D sharp is the same as E flat, F sharp is the same as G flat, G sharp is the same as A flat, and A sharp is the same as B flat. Now guys, if you are not following this, don't worry. Write all your questions down, because when we see each other on our live session, you should be asking all these questions, because we're gonna review the same thing on our live session. So be sure to have all your questions ready, because we're going to solve all your doubts, okay? Now, one more thing. Remember I said that there is no black key between E and F and between B and C. Yeah, but does that mean that there is no E sharp or B sharp? Well, yes, there is, but I'm gonna see that later, okay? We're gonna explain that later. So those are whole steps and half steps. Remember, whole step, two keys away, half step, one key away, okay? Let's continue. Sharps and flats. Okay, so the sharp makes the note a half step higher. So if we are in C, for example, and we put C sharp, it means it's going to be one half step higher than C, okay? And the flat does the opposite. It makes the note a half step lower. So if we are in A and we play and we put it the flat, A flat, it means it's going to be one half step lower than that, okay? Easy. So again, the thing I was mentioning before, okay, there is no black key between E and F, and there is no black key between B and C. But you can say that there is an E sharp. Remember, sharp makes the note a half step higher. So if we say E sharp, it's going to be a half step higher. What is a half step higher from E? F, okay? So F can also be called E sharp. Again, it's like the black keys. They have two names for the same note, okay? The same thing goes. If we say F flat, we know that flat makes the note a half step lower. So if we are in F and we say F flat, we go one half step lower, and we are here in E. So E can also be called F flat. Again, it's the same note, but two different names, okay? Let's continue. So then we arrive to the major scale. Now, this is going to be very important, and you should know how to construct a major scale. That's going to be like our first big lesson from here. And let me just turn on my light. This is going to be very important, so pay a lot of attention, because This is the key, okay? If you don't know this, then the next topics are gonna be very, very complicated to you. This is super, super important. So here we have the major scale. In this case, we have the C major scale. From C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and we end up in C again. It's not that it ends in C, it's just simply the beginning of the next scale because it continues. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, etc., etc. Okay? Now, if you check from C to D, we have a whole step. Why? Because remember that between C and D, we have a black key, okay? So it's C, then we have C sharp, and then we have D. So between C and D, we have a whole step. Here we have it, okay? Between D and E, we also have a whole step, okay? Because we have a D sharp here in the middle. It's 2 keys away. Between E and F, we have a half step because there is no black key. Remember, there is no black key between E and F. So from E to F, we have a half step. Between F and G, the same thing. We have a whole step because we have a black key right in the middle of F and G. Between G and A, we have a whole step because, again, we have here a black key between G and A. And between A and B, we also have a whole step because there is a black key between A and B. And finally, between B and C, we have a half step because remember that there is no black key between B and C. So we have this pattern, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. This pattern, this is going to be the formula to create a major scale. If you follow this formula, you can create any major scale starting from any note ever, okay? We're gonna do that right now, okay? The C major scale has no sharps nor flats, but every other major scale must have at least 1 sharp or 1 flat if we use the formula to create it, okay? We're gonna do some exercises, so don't worry. Everything is gonna be clear later. So let's do some exercises. So let me just change my screen and we're going here. Okay, so here we have, we're going to construct the major scales. So here I have, if you see on the bottom, I have a keyboard and I have the first exercise starting with D. Remember, this is going to be D, okay? If you don't know the names of the notes in the staff, please review them before this because it's going to be difficult for you, okay? So this is D. So what you first need to do is simply write all the notes. So after, and then then we're going to put the sharps or flats if they need them. So after D, we have E. After E, we have F. After F, we have G. After G, we have A. After A, we have B. After B, we have C. And after C, we have D. Okay, so we have all the notes in the D major scale, but it's not a D major scale yet. Why? Because remember, these have no sharps or flats, and the only scale, the only major scale that has no sharps and flats is C major. Okay, so we need to put sharps or flats to make this a D major scale. How do we do that? With the formula that we reviewed before. Remember that the formula is whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So that means that here, between D and E, we should have a whole step. The answer to the question is, do we have it? Between D and E, do we have a black key? Yes. So we don't change anything, okay? D and E are perfectly fine, just like that. Now, between E and F, we should have a whole step because it's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. But between E and F, there is no black key. So what do we have to do to make this a whole step? We sharp the F. And now we have a whole step between E and F sharp. Okay? Continuing. Now we have F sharp. We need right now a half step because remember it's whole step, half step. So between F sharp and G, do we have a half step? The answer is yes. Okay. Why? Because between F and G, F natural, between F and G, there is a black key. But F sharp is right now the black key. So between F sharp and G, we only have a half step. So yes, G is going to be left alone. We're not going to put any sharps or flats. Then we have from G to A, we need a whole step. And we have a whole step because there is a black key between G and A. So we leave A like that. Between A and B, we have a whole step, okay? So we don't need to do anything because we have a whole step. Okay, remember it's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and half step. Between B and C, we need a whole step. Between B and C, we need a whole step, but we don't have a whole step because between B and C, we only have we don't have a black key. So what do we need to do to make this a whole step? We change to C sharp, and now we have here a whole step. Remember, when we're comparing two notes, we're only going to change and modify the one on the right. Okay, and then finally we have C sharp to D. We need a half step because it's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Between C sharp and D, we have a half step, so we don't do anything. Okay, so this is gonna play this. It's gonna sound like this. And then we have the D major scale. So the D major scale has how many sharps? 2 sharps. Which ones? F sharp and C sharp. Okay? Now let's do the same thing with E. Okay, so E, G, A, B, C, and E. Okay, again, so that's the first step. But now we have to put the sharps. Now, if we do the same thing, between E and F, we need a whole step, but we don't have a whole step. So we, between F sharp and G, we need a whole step, but we don't have a whole step. So again, the G. Between G sharp and A, we need a half step, and we have a half step. So we just leave the A alone. From A to B, we need a whole step. We have a whole step, so we don't change it. From B to C, we need a whole step, but we don't have a whole step, so the C to C sharp. Between C sharp and D, we need a whole step, but we don't have a whole step, so we change E to D sharp. And from D sharp to E, we need a half step, and we have a half step, so we just leave the E alone. Okay, and then we have the E major scale. Okay, how many sharps are there in the E major scale? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Which ones are those? F, G, C, and D. Okay, now let's continue. Let's not do the A, let's do this one, the F. We're gonna know why. So F, B, C, D, E, and F. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to apply the formula. From F to G, we need a whole step. We have a whole step, so we leave the G alone. From G to A, we need a whole step. And we have a whole step, so again, we leave the A alone. From A to B, we need a half step. But no, we have a whole step. So we cannot make this sharp because that would make it even bigger than a whole step. We need to make it smaller. So what do we do to make it be this smaller? We put flat. So now between A and B flat, we have a half step. Okay, let's continue. From B flat to C, we need a whole step. And we have a whole step, so we leave it like that. From C to D, we need a whole step. And we have a whole step, so we leave the D alone. From D to E, we need a whole step, and we have a whole step, so we leave that alone. And from E to F, we need a half step, and we have a half step because from E to F, there is a half step. So that is the F major scale. It only has one flat. And which one is that? B flat. Okay? Now let's do another flat, and then we can continue. So we have here E flat. So let's do F, G, A, B, C, D, and now I'm gonna just do this. This E, I'm gonna just put it flat, right? Because I began the scale with E flat. So it's perfectly logical that I'm going to end with E flat, okay? You cannot have in one scale E and E flat, okay? If you begin with E flat, then you end with E flat, okay? So here we have the scale. And we're going to apply the formula. So from E flat to F, we need a whole step. And we have a whole step, so we leave the F. From F to G, we need a whole step. We have a whole step, so we leave the G alone. From G to A, we need a half step, but here we have a whole step. Okay, so we have to make it smaller. So we make it flat. From A flat to B, we need a whole step. But from A flat to B, we have more than a whole step. We have a whole step and then a half step. So it's bigger. So to make this smaller, again, the B. Okay. Then we have from B flat to C, we need a whole step. We have a whole step, so we leave the C. From C to D, we need a whole step, and we have a whole step, so we leave it alone. And from D to E flat, we need a half step, and we have a half step, so we don't do anything. So in E flat major, we have how many flats? 1, 2, 3. 3, not 4, because this E flat is the same as this. So we're not going to count it twice. So we have E flat 1, A flat 2, and B flat 3. 3 flats, okay? So we're not going to do the other ones, but let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. And here we have a task, okay, that you're gonna be doing. Now, don't worry if you didn't understand the whole thing, just try. You're gonna have this presentation uploaded to Schoology, so you can always check that out, okay? So what's the task going to be? On a piece of paper, draw 4 lines of staff. Try not to make the staff too big or too small so I can see where you draw the notes, okay? Like, don't do like a staff like this big because it's gonna be too big, okay? A normal size. On each line, you will construct the following major scales: G major, F sharp major, B flat major, and A flat major. Now, again, don't worry if you didn't understand, okay? Try to make it, watch this video as many times as you like, especially the how to construct the major scale, and then try to do the exercises. Uh, it doesn't matter if you do it wrong, because we're going to see the same thing on our live session, okay? So when we have the live session, I'm gonna answer all your questions, all your doubts. We're gonna practice this more. It's gonna be a much more dynamic session because you'll be able to ask questions on the fly, okay? So do this for major scales. And then after you construct them, take a picture of it and be sure that the picture is good enough for me to read. Okay, or if you have a scanner at home, scan it and upload it to the assignment in Schoology. Okay, again, it doesn't matter if you do them wrong, but just try. Okay, watch the video 1, 2, or 3 times if you like. It doesn't matter how many times you watch it, but try to understand what I'm doing right here. Okay, and then do the exercises, do the 4 major scales, take a picture of it or scan it and upload it to Schoology. Then we're going to review those exercises next class on our live session. We're going to answer your questions, and then we're going to correct this task, okay? Because if you did it wrong, we're going to correct it with each other, and then you can upload it, correct it, okay? So that's going to be everything for today. Be sure to log on to the next live session because it's very important that you solve all your doubts from this video. And I think you might have a few doubts, okay? And don't worry, I don't expect you to be perfect right now because this is something that you are going to get better at the more you do it, okay? And I think it's impossible to do it perfect on the first try. Okay, so don't worry. We're going to be doing this a lot, and we're going to perfect our way of constructing our major scales. So without further ado, I hope you have a nice day. Remember, try to do this today, and you have to upload it up until 9 p.m. Okay, so we'll see each other next live session, and stay safe and be healthy. Bye-bye.